glorious era declined so rapidly in just a few seasons. Over 3,200 years ago, the Mediterranean and Near East regions were the center of an ancient globalized area, where illustrious empires like Egypt, Hittite, Mycenaeans, or Babylon thrived. But then, in 1177 BC, everything collapsed. Cities were burned, languages vanished, and iron gradually replaced bronze. And civilization entered a dark age lasting for centuries. What happened? What catastrophe took the lives of those dynasties? To understand it all, we must go back in time, return to the starting point. As the name suggests, the Bronze Age was when humans first touched this material and turned it into tools to build their own world. With increasingly sophisticated smelting and metallurgy skills, ancient humans learned to mix copper with tin or arsenic to create something with superior hardness, which later became known as bronze. And so, a more durable, sharp, and flexible material was born, increasingly used for weapons, tools, household items, and even jewelry. Archaeological sites show that the Fertile Crescent, the origin of Mesopotamian civilization, was the first cradle of metallurgy. From here, copper crafting techniques spread throughout the Middle East, Mediterranean, and many other regions, leading to profound changes in human development. From nomadic hunting and gathering, humanity shifted to settled agriculture and residence. Large urban areas gradually emerged, societies became more complexly stratified, and with that came the birth of the first writing systems. Bronze was not just a material but a symbol of evolution in both technology and thought. As usage demands surged, mining activities, ore refining, and trade networks also developed strongly. This glorious era also gave rise to a series of historical wonders, such as the Giza pyramids standing tall in the Egyptian desert, the magnificent Karnak temple spanning 3 courtyards, or the wheel and cuneiform writing that appeared in the Uruk period of Mesopotamia. In that fervent development, the first multi-ethnic political empire in human history, Akkad, was born, followed by the formation of other civilizations like the Assyrian Empire in Mesopotamia, Egypt during the New Kingdom period, Babylon, the Hittite Empire in the Anatolian Peninsula, Mycenaeans in Greece, and Minoan on Crete. However, that glory did not last forever. Around 1200 BC, the Bronze Age entered a period of rapid decline. In just a few decades, almost everything completely collapsed. Only Egypt remained, but in a state of exhaustion and severe weakness. But what pushed everything to the brink? The first clues about the chaotic end of the Bronze Age were a special discovery at a site along the Mediterranean coast in what is now Syria. Here, a letter inscribed on a clay tablet was found, believed to be from the king of Ugarit to the Empire of Cyprus. It describes enemies flooding in, burning fortresses, and ravaging the land, while Ugarit's infantry and chariots were hundreds of miles away, leaving the country defenseless. A final message from this kingdom also reported a tragic situation. The army scattered, cities collapsed, food supplies burned, crops turned to ashes amid the fierce chaos. But it wasn't just Ugarit in this plight. Almost simultaneously, the island of Cyprus was also invaded. Coastal cities in the west were burned, and settlements deep inland were abandoned. The people who once lived here tried to bury their valuable possessions, hoping to return one day. But unfortunately, that would never happen. The situation in Greece was no better. Throughout the previous century, the Mycenaeans were engulfed in internal instability. Ruins show signs of major fires, along with arrows and weapons, painting a clear picture of a fierce battle where the defenders ultimately lost. Some other cities in the central Near East were occupied, indicating a popular uprising, overthrowing local kings. But elsewhere, places were abandoned due to famine, natural disasters, or both. The situation in Anatolia, the homeland of the Hittites, was even worse. Archaeological evidence shows that every major city here was destroyed, especially along the coastal regions. This was almost absolute. For a long time, the sudden collapse on such a regional scale remained a difficult question to explain. Historians knew that this event occurred, but no one could say exactly how and why it happened. However, by the latter half of the 19th century, as time passed, the Egyptian desert suddenly revealed shocking clues, overturning all hypotheses about the historical tragedy once forgotten. Here, an ancient Mycenaean seal was discovered in the Medineh Habu temple, built by Pharaoh Ramesses III, describing multiple attacks by foreign armies landing on the country's shores over about 30 years. Faced with these attacks, everything was immediately flattened and scattered in chaos. No nation could withstand their weapons. Egyptian history also provides vague information about the origins of those who spread darkness. Over 3,000 years later, historians named that army the Sea Peoples. They did not come from a single nation, but were a diverse collection of various communities, spread across the Mediterranean, from Sicily, Sardinia to Crete and the Greek coast. Some groups even originated from places further west. These people, members of a loose alliance, yet managed to sweep away numerous ancient civilizations in smoke and despair. Their attire was also not uniform. Some wore feathered hats, others horned helmets, and some groups simply covered their heads with plain cloth. Some warriors wore short kilts like Scottish ones or donned goatskin armor. The only commonality among these exiles was their motivation to leave their old lands. They came not only with swords and shields but also with wives, children, possessions, and beliefs. All boarded large ships, moving to other lands like a massive wave. It can be said that on their journeys sweeping across lands from the Mediterranean to Mesopotamia, almost no force could stand firm against the Sea Peoples. But what made them so invincible? The answer lies in the symbol that once determined glory and destruction across ancient battlefields. The chariot, two-wheeled vehicles pulled by horses. Initially, this was just a fast means of transport for lords or nobles. But later, it became the strength of every army, from Babylon, Hittite, to Assyria, and Egypt. Standard chariots of that period typically had two wheels, two soldiers, with one driver holding the reins and one archer firing deadly arrows. The horses were carefully selected, trained over a long time, to achieve superior mobility. When fully utilized, their speed was twice that of sprinting infantry. Meanwhile, the archers used compact composite bows, not too long but extremely effective, capable of shooting far and penetrating armor. On the battlefield, chariots combined advantages in three aspects: speed, range, and firepower. No vehicle at that time could confront them head-on. To visualize, when the battleship HMS Dreadnought was launched in 1906, all fleets worldwide immediately became obsolete. It was faster, shot farther, and was stronger than any opponent, just as chariots dominated every ancient battlefield. But with glory came a high price. Raising horses, training soldiers, manufacturing equipment, all consumed national wealth. Additionally, horses are special animals. They must be selected and trained from a young age, and only a few regions can produce breeds that met the standards. Weapons and armor for cavalry could not be mass-produced, as each item required a very intricate crafting process. Losing a chariot is not just a material loss, it's also a devastating blow to the entire formation. Therefore, alongside the chariots, large infantry forces are often deployed. They perform tasks of shielding, supporting, breaking enemy formations, or protecting the chariots when surrounded. But then, when the storm of the Sea People swept ashore, what was once the ultimate symbol of power turned into meaningless ruins. Unlike ancient empires relying on chariots escorted by spearmen, the Sea Peoples entered enemy camps on bare feet and with sharp swords. They carried light weapons, unusual tactics, and an unquenchable flame. Instead of moving in closed formations like a continuous spear lines of West Asian armies, they scattered everywhere, breaking traditional patterns, seeking for unexpected paths. Their troops declared war on all ancient formulas. They were not slow or rigid armies, but a mobile wave, breaking through all defensive lines. Small groups attacked weak points, cutting off retreat routes and appearing like lightning on the battlefield. This guerrilla-style surprise made chariots, which only excelled in speed over infantry, become clumsy and ineffective. Imagine an isolated chariot in the front line surrounded by dozens of shadows from all four directions. Unable to retreat or turn around, the chariot became easy prey in preset traps. And when the Sea People's swords struck, the chariot shattered like glass. Then, the defensive forces tried to set up spear walls to hold their positions but were pierced from behind. Formations fragmented and ultimately faced desperate death. At that time, Egypt was the last fortress not yet collapsed, but its eastern neighbors, northern allies, and western kingdoms had all fallen before the Sea Peoples. At Medinet Habu, an epic battle is carved in stone, depicting the glorious pharaoh commanding from a chariot, with spearmen behind and layers of enemies ahead. But even so, the focus was no longer on the wheels, but on the rows of spears, wood, filled with arrows, ready to shoot down anyone daring to cross the river. Instead of parading the chariots, they blocked with crossbows and defensive formations. On the ground, all national spearmen were deployed, no one absent, no place left undefended. Every inch of land by the river was an ambush waiting for the silent enemy. The relief records the end with images of Sea Peoples bound, led away among Egyptian soldiers. Beside the pharaoh, scenes of enemies lying dead in heaps, but that to convey a message of dominance for eternity. Of course, this is the history carved in stone by the victors. But looking at the aftermath, no one can deny that the Sea Peoples failed at the river's mouth. Despite the victory, Egypt paid too high a price, with human losses and depleted resources. From that moment, the land of the pharaohs slid from superpower status, forever just a shadow behind the Golden Age. But this continuous decline cannot be placed solely on the mysterious attackers from the sea. Behind it is a chain of collapses, starting from the disintegration of the intercontinental trade network. This silent but severe breakdown became the clue for modern scholars to trace the real cause. And the evidence they found not only fails to convince but also forces us to reconsider the entire logic of that world's operation. All ancient civilizations depended on a core material for survival, bronze alloy. Without it, weapons became brittle, tools easily broke, and technological achievements quickly degenerated. To create bronze, one must mix 90% pure copper with 10% refined tin. A simple ratio but requiring an extremely stable supply. This material is not rare, but extraction was not easy, especially with the primitive techniques of that time. Though many kingdoms had their own mines, only Cyprus was truly the metallic heart of the region. This place was almost flooded with copper, and extraction was simply digging resources directly from the ground with tools. That made Cyprus a strong economic center and a key link in the massive material exchange network. In contrast to copper, tin was a hard-to-find and extremely scarce material, to the point of determining the fate of entire civilizations. There was a small mine in Anatolia, under tight control by the Hittites. But the quantity was too little to last long. Moreover, almost no land in the region produced this precious metal. The largest supply then came from the Far East, in what is now Afghanistan, thousands of miles away over mountains and deserts. The journey from there to Cyprus was harsh, full of lurking dangers, robbers, wars, and fierce nature. Yet, the profit from this commodity was so great that merchants still risked all dangers to transport each shipment westward. A few mining points were also used, but none were large enough to save the world dependent on bronze. Only Cornwall, at the far west of Britain, had a quantity comparable to the Afghan mine. Those sea voyages stretched across the sky, crossing straits and seas, sometimes just to exchange for a few blocks of silver ore. But if the journey succeeded, the reward was profits high enough to make any dynasty proud of nations. From this, it's clear that just a small disruption in the tin distribution system would cause the entire metal industry to collapse like a sandcastle. And without bronze, that era would disappear. Raids were just the final straw that broke the camel. What truly killed the Bronze Age civilization was the destruction of global trade routes, causing the manufacturing process of weapons and tools to stagnate, leading to the collapse of numerous empires that once held. It truly is a vicious cycle. Each attack from the sea nomads brought trade activities to a halt. The halt in commerce meant that nations lost essential resources for self-defense and recovery. The widespread weakness made the entire ancient land fragile in the face of the next wave of destruction. As the Bronze Age powers crumbled one by one, the prospect of revival sank deep into the darkness of despair. But is the truth really that simple? There are other invisible forces quietly driving the empires to their demise. Even without disruptions in global trade, the region might have already been on the brink of collapse. According to experts, the migration wave of the Sea Peoples coincided with a period of over 50 years during which West Asia was ravaged by a series of major earthquakes. Archaeological evidence also shows that cities in Greece, Anatolia, the Levant, and Cyprus were devastated by terrible seismic events. Among them, the Greek mainland seemed to suffer the most damage, as it barely retained its original shape. It is only in recent times that things have started to become clearer. Sediment cores and tree rings in northern Europe revealed traces of a climate crisis, which forced people to quickly move south in search of a way to survive. In the end, it was all just links in a chain reaction. When nature raged, humanity struggled to flee, and proud civilizations collapsed without understanding what was happening. Surprisingly, the eastern Mediterranean region was even more severely affected. Ancient pollen samples from northern Syria indicate a prolonged drought lasting 300 years, beginning just before the Bronze Age collapse. The situation was even worse in Cyprus. Environmental changes were so severe that rainfall was no longer sufficient to sustain even basic agricultural activities. And of course, that was undoubtedly a disaster. It could explain why numerous cities were abandoned before the Sea Peoples appeared. Similar conditions were found in the Levant and Anatolia. Even in Greece, evidence shows that over hundreds of years, plants evolved to adapt to arid, desolate. Letters found in the city of Ugarit also support this discovery. The Hittite kings had an urgent plea for grain to the Ugarit Empire. Anyway, this is a matter of life and death. Ask school, and the teacher will return to the teacher. It is the result of many small forms of suppression, accumulating and amplifying to the point where it is hard to hold back. Unpredictable weather, the teacher cannot hold back. 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 Unpredictable weather caused the land to dry up, preventing sprouts from growing and leading to crop failures. The consequences spread. Cities became devoid of people, and once bustling streets now only echoed with the wind whistling through cold ruins. When food became scarce, it ignited competition, and conflicts erupted within every community. The ruling class gradually lost control, while minority groups began to rise. Once prosperous areas turned into deserted ports. And then, at the peak of chaos, nameless armies landed from the sea. Layer by layer, civilizations were swept away like dry leaves in a storm. No one had the strength to stand up anymore, nor anyone. 5 factors collided simultaneously, causing the glorious Bronze Age to simply come to an end.